In moments of the deepest despair, when everything you believed in collapses, you seek salvation. This is a story about betrayal hidden behind a wedding veil, about the secret of the will, which cost his life, and about the sudden sign of fate that came in the most unexpected guise. She had to lose everything to finally see the truth. Everything will be fine with us, and we will live happily ever after for the rest of our lives. I want as many children's voices as possible in our house, Charles declared when he was just caring for her. At that time, Alicia wasn't that much in love. The brunette seemed like an unshakable rock that would protect him from all worries. And her father convinced her, "My daughter, I don't have much left. You know about my weak heart. Soon I will leave this world after my mother, and I will be at peace if you get married." So Jessica, a petite, fragile woman with soft brown curls, believed the sweet promises of her most persistent admirer. It was only later that she realized that they were like a broker and a basketball player. People like Steven, conquer themselves, make exorbitant promises, and if anything, swing the ball. Or maybe she just betrayed not Steven, but the dream that she would never be alone again, and there would be someone reliable by her side. Maybe she would have given herself more time to think, but the doctors were giving more and more depressing predictions for Dad, and she began to hurry. Marriage is naive, of course, and unwise, but Jessica believed that if Dad attended the wedding ceremony and found out about the pregnancy, he would miraculously heal and live for many years. That's when she answered, "For now, I will try very hard to love you." Actually, it would have been worth paying attention to the anger that distorted the smug face of the groom. But, as often happens, she just wanted to stop worrying about Dad, to be afraid of her loneliness. Therefore, she began to falsify the facts and convince herself that it seemed to her that in fact the man was not violent at all, but only tense. Did he somehow prove his feelings? Did you do something for her? Not at all. Just empty talk. Stephen raised his voice and said, "Jessica, as a loving person, I feel that you and our future children already need me endlessly. Just trust me, everything will be fine." She believed it like she'd lost her mind. Her father had paid for their celebration, but he hadn't lived to see that happy moment. And she was standing there, drooping, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please don't fuck with me," Stephen hissed at her. "Everyone will think that an inconspicuous person like you is doing me a favor by agreeing to marry me." What a pity that he said this after the marriage was registered in the District Court of Fairfax, Virginia. Otherwise, she would have run away immediately and forgotten forever. "I'm sorry, I suggested rescheduling the wedding due to the recent funeral. Just a week ago, she lost her closest and dearest person. Do you know what you're saying? And who would pay for a wedding again? Or would your dear dad have risen from the grave and paid a huge sum again?" The new husband answered rudely. Jessica suddenly began to sink right into her magnificent wedding outfit and woke up on the floor. Someone was splashing water on her to bring her to her senses. Stephen also suddenly transformed and pretended to be so sweetly caring, sweet and wonderful. Only now it looked like an insidious candy castle in which something very evil and dangerous was waiting for those who got lost and believed in free pleasure. "Come on, honey, come to your senses," Stephen said deliberately loudly. "It's your day. You will remember him. It was a mistake." "Yes, it's a mistake," she whispered, still not realizing where she was. And she wasn't talking so much about the wedding as about the baby that was born in her womb. Why did she get pregnant by such a man? The child will probably be very unhappy, and she is stupid. Yes, Stephen is right about that. Such a stupid egoist that only she could rush into a relationship with this chatterbox in the hope that her father would get better. "What's wrong, honey? What are you talking about?" Stephen quietly led her out of the noisy banquet hall into the recreation room, and there he immediately began to speak in a completely different way. "Will you calm down already, idiot? You're making a mistake, okay? I wouldn't have contacted you if I hadn't hoped that your dad would give you a serious piece of inheritance. But in the end, he still signed over to his brother, Uncle Frank, during his lifetime, and all I got was a worthless wedding with a gray mouse. How I courted. And what did you get in the end? My dad can't stand you, you know that? If I didn't respect my father, why would I need you?" The last words were completely incomprehensible. What does her father-in-law have to do with it? She barely knew him and hadn't even spoken a few words with him. Her husband wouldn't let them communicate afterwards. It doesn't bode well, Jessica thought. But she said it anyway. We're going to have a baby, so we're going to have to postpone the divorce. She made 2 homemade tests, and 2 strips appeared on each one. So it was time to face a new reality. She was pregnant. Wait, I'll make your life a living hell if you don't file for divorce after this unnecessary wedding. I'm only putting up with this disgrace because I've invited senior officials from the Center Corporation here, and I need to keep up the facade. If your father hadn't arranged a surprise with this will, I wouldn't have bet on you, Robert shouted, and his face turned purple with anger. Jessica herself did not know why her father had transferred all the property to her stepbrother from his first marriage during his lifetime. She didn't really know Jonathan, and the situation became known only at the memorial service. All that remained to Jessica was an old apartment in a working-class neighborhood of Queens, New York, in a house that no one would ever renovate, and everything. Jonathan said something strange. "Believe me, your father wanted to protect you." "What do you mean?" She was surprised then, but he replied that it was not the time to talk yet, and it was better not to know anything yet. And when will that time come? When will someone explain something to her? No, it wasn't that she was suddenly left almost penniless. She began to wonder if her father had ever loved her. Was he pretending for some obscure purpose, as her husband is doing now? That was what tore her heart apart and almost made it impossible to breathe. "You know, Robert, I'm going to get some fresh air, and then we're going to pretend that everything is fine. And don't worry, you won't see me after the wedding unless you get a divorce. And even then, everything can be done remotely," she said calmly. There was only one thought in her head: to get out of here immediately before she went completely crazy. A few weeks passed like this, and she sat like a recluse in the old studio, only occasionally going out for groceries. However, Jessica could hardly force herself to swallow the food. She recalled her shame. She called a taxi and was right in a magnificent wedding dress. I couldn't even get into the car because of the crinoline. "Well, ma'am, you should change your clothes first, but hurry up, otherwise the meter is ticking," the imperturbable mustachioed driver muttered. Then she just took a pair of nail scissors out of her purse and, in front of the stunned taxi driver, tore rather than cut the thinnest fabric with rude movements. As a result, the hated crinoline was finished, and the petticoat turned into something obscene, even on my own wedding day. It's good that she chose this particular transformer model. The seller said, "Here, remove the frame on the second day, and you will have a mermaid-style wedding dress." I didn't have to wait for the second day. It was time to turn into anyone, just to get away, not to call a van to put this stupid dress with a frame. The driver surreptitiously looked around the whole way. What if she decides to do something to herself right in the back seat of his car? Finally, the taxi driver couldn't stand it and said, "It's not my place to give advice, but lovers often make up, and life can still sparkle with new colors." Jessica, oddly enough, clung to these words. She was hoping for a magic call that would cancel the birth of a baby or somehow improve the relationship. So Jessica froze, waiting for a life-saving call that would give at least a temporary illusion that she was needed, or at least that nothing needed to be solved in the near future. She looked like she'd been hit by a stray bullet, or even several. She wanted to lie down, heal up, wait for at least some desires or hopes to arise again, but nothing like that happened. A stern, elderly man, bald, in an expensive Brooks Brothers suit, brought her a subpoena for divorce. "But he knows I'm pregnant and he can't divorce me." "Well, protest. What's it to me? The more people like you quarrel, the more we enrich ourselves. If everyone behaved like civilized people instead of animals, we would starve to death. I'm sorry for being blunt, but I don't have the money, and I don't have the energy either." "There's so much going on," she moaned naively, even though she knew he didn't care. The bald man just shrugged his shoulders, saying, "What's it to me? I'm not a social worker for the underprivileged, and I don't have to listen to you. Call some free support line." Then he just waited for the signature and advised not to delay or anger his client. "Stephen Marshall told me everything. He knows what kind of lifestyle you've been leading, so don't try to attach your luggage to it. Contact your real father, if you even know who he is. Yeah, the women have gone. There's nowhere to put the brands." Jessica realized that her husband had slandered her, and the words of justification stuck in her throat with a lump. After all, what's the point of proving anything to this insensitive one? He's only interested in money. A week later, it's time to go on the agenda. She decided not to spend dollars on taxis. She didn't have the energy to go to work, so she quit. I hadn't thought about savings before. They were almost non-existent. I wanted to call my stepbrother, but I thought I wasn't ready to receive another blow and an angry rebuff on the topic. It's my own fault. I'm a fool. And so, after 2 subway transfers and a bus ride, she quietly trudged on foot to the place of yet another humiliation and tried just not to think about anything. But I still couldn't help but cry. Then she suddenly began to suffocate and sat down on a bench. There was still plenty of time. Jessica went to the next scaffold in advance. She was always punctual. The severity of all the events and, most likely, pregnancy is too strong. Someone touched her arm. Is it bad? Get a divorce from this bastard as soon as possible. And when you get home, open the dressing table and look behind the double wall. You'll thank your luck for this day. How do you know about divorce? For some reason, Jessica heard and immediately remembered every word clearly. Then she saw that a gypsy woman was sitting in front of her, and she said wearily, "Oh, I see. We saw a sad woman who is next to a sad place where marriages are dissolved. I don't have any jewelry or cash. Don't get your hopes up, and I won't believe your stories about fate. Jessica, don't do this to me. I'm a decent woman, and I'm not going to ask you for anything." The gypsy looked into her eyes seriously, and her face seemed familiar, but Jessica couldn't remember where or when she might have seen her. "Look, just leave me alone," she begged. She had been deceived too much lately, and she was absolutely not going to tolerate another such incident. Of course, it's unclear how this lady knows her name, but maybe she secretly peeked at the documents in her bag while she was sleeping. Don't forget about the dressing table and get divorced. Don't think about it. And we'll meet again, but everything will be much better for you, the gypsy promised and disappeared into the crowd as quickly as she appeared. That's what amused me. Yes, now I have a mysterious hope for a dressing table. Jessica thought first of all, and, of course, after checking the bag, she was glad when she realized that nothing had been stolen. Stephen showed up for the hearing, but for some reason Jessica wasn't in so much pain anymore. The grief for my father burned much more. And why, after all, would a child's father be a scoundrel? It's better not to have any, to stay with a clear conscience. Calmly. Everything went surprisingly smoothly. There was nothing to share. Stephen only demanded back the ring he had given her. She wanted to give it back herself, so she took it with her, so I immediately threw it to him. Good luck. That's all she said to him at parting. Who needs you? You're like a used product now. Robert couldn't resist saying it in private. Come on, you fool. Don't teach, just torment. For some reason, Jessica replied in the words of her grandmother, whom she loved so much. It's a pity she and her mom drowned on that cruise ship. There have been too many losses in the last 3 years. She even thought suddenly, maybe her father left everything to Jonathan because he went crazy and couldn't stand the whole load. That thought made me feel a little better. She even smiled. Stephen recoiled from her and ran out in convulsions of anger. And suddenly, Jessica realized that if the gypsy's words about the dressing table were a lie, she was already grateful that fate had taken this stupid and insensitive man away from her. Jessica took a taxi back. I decided to celebrate a small victory. The gypsy did not steal anything, and she did not please her ex-husband. And when I got home, I looked in the mirror of an old oak dressing table with beautiful carvings. Then I found a screwdriver, unscrewed the screws that hid the back wall. There was a key and a note with my father's handwriting. Jessica, open the old blue suitcase that my mother forgot when she left on her last business trip. Jonathan will tell you the rest. He's your friend. Jessica didn't believe that her stepbrother adored her, but she had already stopped being surprised by anything. She opened the lock. There was a stack of bills on the suitcase. She couldn't even count how many there were. A few $1,000,000, I think. Jonathan's mobile phone was also there, and only then did she remember that her brother had never left her his number, although she did not remember if she had asked for it. She dialed it. After all, I made an impression on you in a gypsy outfit. I studied to be an actor for a reason. Let's meet at the diner near your house. I'll explain everything. Her stepbrother seemed to be sitting and waiting for her call. When? What is it? She asked, not even having time to be surprised that he had just admitted that he was the fortune teller. However, the gray eyes and the pointed nose were the same. I've been sitting here waiting for you to call, Jonathan said. Okay. She remembered that she had taken another pregnancy test upon arrival. Although 2 tests showed stripes, it happens differently in life. This time, the test showed 1, and even if the fortune teller was Jonathan or he was her, one of them was still a prophet. Of course, everything had to be checked, but this already gave great hope that she would not have to give birth to such a man. Jessica would never have decided to terminate her pregnancy, and yet she was happy that she might not be expecting any baby. She waited a few months, as Jonathan had asked. She behaved as if nothing had happened, did not talk to anyone about the fact that she had suddenly become rich, and was not expecting anyone at all, which was confirmed by ultrasound at Riverview Clinic. Jonathan told her a story that still didn't make sense. It turns out that Stephen's father was Jessica's dad's sworn enemy, and he simply ordered his son to take revenge on the daughter of someone he hated. More specifically, marry her, squeeze out the property, and in no case have children together. In fact, Jessica's dad didn't do anything wrong to her ex's father. He was an embittered, envious man and blamed everyone for his failures. But Stephen loved and obeyed his father madly, and he really wanted to do everything exactly as he was ordered. So the fake documents were able to convince Stephen that he would receive nothing from the bride, and the false pregnancy also turned out to be a help of fate. But why didn't Dad tell me that I shouldn't marry this terrible man? She was surprised. Well, who knew? Our father was already in a bad way when everything became known. He was also afraid that if he told you, you might lose the baby. After all, this is his grandson. Then he just sold everything and left you that suitcase and a note, Jonathan summed up. But you're safe now. Stephen and his father went abroad to hide the fraud on a huge loan, which they did not repay, and they did not intend to, except from your accounts. And I thought you were such an evil stepbrother who was happy that I was left with nothing. Jessica smiled and asked, why did you pretend to be a fortune teller? It's simple. I should have supported you and secretly informed you about the money. And if Stephen had seen us together, it would have aroused suspicion. He was watching you, Jonathan explained. And it's not for nothing that I studied at the theater studio. By the way, I'm ready to share since everything turned out so well. I know my dad didn't break up with your mom and his first wife very well. He even took his part of the house. Jessica was ashamed of this family secret that she had found out. Her mother was a good woman, but she did everything so that her husband did not see his firstborn. Oh, don't worry about that. My father always secretly met with us and supported my mother financially. The husband cheated on his wife. Just don't think that your dad cheated on your mom. There was nothing like that, but we've always been friends, Jonathan explained. Well, then I'll change the apartment first. I don't want Stephen, if he ever comes back, to come to me to find out about our child, who will never be. Jessica shared her plans. It's a good decision. Have you ever dreamed of studying to become an architect and moving to Boston? Do I remember correctly? Yes, you know everything, just like a fortune teller. Jessica pretended to be angry. Jessica, don't say that. I'm a good woman, and as I promised you, we've met, and you're doing much better, Jonathan said in the voice of that fortune teller. And Jessica was just crying quietly with happiness. And it wasn't the millions, although who would give up on them? A dear and reliable person appeared.